Today was the wedding of my elite former classmate, Kevin. I was attending the reception in the grand ballroom of a luxurious hotel. Then, Kevin, seeing me, blurted out something shocking.
Hey, I only invited the highly educated today, so why is there someone with low education here?
His unpleasant voice echoed in the lavish wedding venue. I was invited, so I came reluctantly, but I couldn't understand why Kevin had to say something like that to me. Kevin has always looked down on me for my lower educational background. Normally, I can let it slide, but this time, I just couldn't hold back. When he finally realizes who I really am, Kevin will be brought to his knees. My name is James. I'm 30 years old. You might not guess from the current me, but I've led a slightly different life. I was born to an ordinary mother and father. My dad ran a small company, and I think we lived a relatively affluent life compared to others around us. Although my parents were busy with a business, on their days off, they would take me wherever I wanted to go, and I could do anything I wanted.
Studying is important in life. It never lets you down.
My dad made me study a lot when I was young. I studied hard, just as my dad told me to. Thanks to that, I succeeded in entering a prestigious elementary school and got into a private school that was integrated from elementary through high school. Just as my dad said, studying never betrayed me. The more I studied, the more knowledge I gained, and I could feel myself getting smarter, which made studying enjoyable for me. As I continued studying, I aspired to become a great business owner like my dad someday. But the happy days didn't last long. Around the time I entered middle school, my father's company began to struggle. Dad was scrambling for funds, and my mom started working multiple part-time jobs to help with the finances. When I came home from school, my parents were always exhausted. I'm going to transfer to a public middle school. That should ease our finances a bit, right? I suggested this to my parents, but they wouldn't agree.
You don't need to worry about that, James. It would be a waste for someone who can study like you to go to a public school.
Dad stubbornly kept me in the expensive private school. However, by the time I entered high school, it was impossible to revive my father's business, and the debt only increased. My mother desperately supported my father's business, but she reached her limit.
We can't do this anymore.
My mother, in tears, told my father to close the business, and he had no choice but to follow her words. A few days later, my father, with much regret, closed his company and became unemployed. My father, who had been a vigorous businessman, completely lost his vitality and fell into depression. My mother worked in his place to support our family, but all her earnings went to my private school tuition. From then on, my life changed completely. What was once normal for me, like eating whatever I wanted whenever I wanted and buying whatever I desired, became a struggle even for the next day's meals. Therefore, I immediately decided to drop out of high school and start working. At first, my parents were puzzled by my decision, but given the dire situation, they reluctantly agreed. And so, I dropped out of high school and started working at a major online retail company. Dropping out of high school was a sad decision for me, but I can still study on my own. Now, I need to work for my family. With that mindset, I began my job. It was unimaginable for me, who had been a high school student until recently, to suddenly become a working adult, but my colleagues were kind to me, and we cooperated in our work. I gradually got used to this environment. My working seemed to help my parents somewhat, and I felt reassured that my decision was not wrong. Those days continued, and it had been 13 years since I entered the workforce. Time flies. Eventually, I was celebrating my 30th birthday. My colleagues said they would throw me a birthday party at a fancy restaurant, so I was walking towards that restaurant. It's a bit embarrassing, but also pleasing to be celebrated like this at 30. I was looking forward to seeing what kind of birthday party it would be. Then, I saw someone familiar walking towards me. I quickly looked down, trying not to be noticed, but he started staring intently at me. Oh no, I'm busted.
Hey, isn't that James?
The person who called out to me was Kevin, a former classmate of mine. The moment Kevin spoke to me, I instinctively stepped back. The reason I didn't want Kevin to notice me was because of the bitter memories from middle school. Kevin and I had been in the same elementary school. His father was the president of a major transportation company, and he lived a considerably wealthier life compared to our other classmates. His clothes were all designer brands, and the things he owned were much more expensive than what me or the other classmates had. Kevin always bragged about it to me and the others. I distanced myself from Kevin and rarely talked to him. But upon entering middle school, I ended up in the same class as Kevin. Being in the same class meant I couldn't avoid talking to him. Kevin often initiated conversations with me, but his talks were all about bragging.
I got the top score at the tutoring center recently. The tests are just too easy, it's laughable.
Our classmates praised Kevin for his boasting.
Hey James, why don't you go to tutoring? You can't because you don't have the money, right?
Kevin laughed, looking at my face. The other classmates looked at me with cold eyes. Back then, my father's business was not doing well, and I couldn't even tell my parents that I wanted to go to tutoring. I ignored Kevin's words and left the scene. The incident happened a month later. That day was the posting of our first midterm exam results in starting middle school. I was surprised to see the ranking on the bulletin board. I was in first place overall. Kevin, watching from behind, yelled out to me,
James, you must have cheated, right? There's no way someone who doesn't attend tutoring could rank first. It's totally impossible, like the world turning upside down.
The other classmates seemed to believe Kevin, looking at me with scorn. Despite not having cheated, why was I accused of such a thing? I was seething with anger. I didn't cheat. That was all I could muster in response. After that, I was labeled as a cheater in middle school, pointed at with disdain. It was all because of Kevin's baseless accusations. But there were friends who believed in me, which helped me overcome the situation. However, after several more exams, I consistently ranked top in my grade, and the number of classmates who treated me as a cheater gradually decreased. Kevin didn't like that and started to pick on me every chance he got. Even after advancing to high school, when Kevin learned I dropped out, he sneered at me.
Your dad's company went bankrupt, huh? That's what happens when an incompetent person becomes a president.
I almost lunged at Kevin in anger. I was held back by a classmate just in time, but I couldn't forgive him for insulting my parents. Who on earth does he think he is? So Kevin, you must be a really important person. Keep it up. I said these words sarcastically to Kevin, but he just smiled broadly, not catching the sarcasm. I left the school, passing Kevin by, thinking I would never see him again, yet here we were meeting in such a place. My luck couldn't get any worse. The cheerful mood I had earlier was gone.
Haha, you never changed, do you? Still reeking of poverty.
Kevin started talking to me with a mocking joy in his voice. Here we go again. I wasn't walking there just to listen to Kevin's snide remarks. You haven't changed either. I kept walking towards my destination while talking. Then Kevin kept following me.
Right? I'm always smart. I'd like to share some of my intelligence with you.
Kevin said that with a laugh. Does he really think he's that smart? I laughed inside. I wish you could, but I've got things to do, so I'll be going now. Hearing this, Kevin laughed even more.
The future must be bleak for someone who dropped out of high school. Well, it's a world that has nothing to do with me.
I ignored Kevin's words and kept walking. After high school, Kevin graduated from a prestigious university and now works for the large company his parents run, or so I heard through the grapevine. But it was all thanks to his parents' connections, not his own abilities. I couldn't fathom why he felt the need to lord it over me. After saying his piece, Kevin didn't follow me any further. When I arrived at the restaurant, my colleagues were waiting for me.
The star of the show is finally here. James, congratulations.
Ken said that, and the rest of my colleagues welcomed me with applause. It's always nice to be celebrated, no matter how old you get. Thanks, everyone, for throwing such a great party for me despite your busy schedules. I expressed my heartfelt gratitude to everyone. They all smiled broadly.
We do this anytime for you, James.
They even gave me a present. I opened the package with childlike excitement, and I found a tie so nice I wasn't sure if it suited me. I tentatively put the tie against my chest to show it. How does it look? Ken and the others cheered.
James, it suits you perfectly.
James, you always wear the same tie, so we went for something really stylish. Glad you like it.
I scratched my head, feeling a bit embarrassed. I was overwhelmed that they had thought so much about me to buy such a gift. Thank you. I'll treasure it. Everyone looked happy to hear my words. After that, I enjoyed a delicious meal and said goodbye to my colleagues. Ken and I then headed towards the station. I'm really happy about the birthday party. Thanks a lot.
It's only natural for a valuable coworker like you.
Ken laughed. Ken and I started working at the company around the same time. Although he's 5 years older than me, we get along well and even go out for drinks together in our private time. He's always been supportive at work, always looking out for me, and I'm forever grateful to him. At that moment, I had completely forgotten about the unpleasant encounter with Kevin before the birthday party, immersed in the joyous afterglow of the celebration. But inevitably, a situation arose where I had to face Kevin again. About a week after my birthday, I was sitting at my desk, working as usual, when Ken came over.
Could you deliver these documents to Rainbow Logistics?
Rainbow Logistics is a company our firm does business with. Ken seemed rushed, as if it was urgent. Sure, I'll go now.
Really? I'm swamped with end-of-month work. You're a lifesaver.
Ken handed me the documents with a happy expression. I immediately took them and hurried off to Rainbow Logistics. After several train transfers, I arrived at the company and was overwhelmed by its size. Rainbow Logistics is one of the top companies in the logistics industry. I asked the receptionist to hand over the documents and was about to leave. Then, I heard a familiar voice behind, so I turned around. Standing there was none other than Kevin.
What brings you to my company?
I couldn't believe my ears. Rainbow Logistics, right? Kevin's father's company. I had completely forgotten about that. Oh, Rainbow Logistics is your father's company. I just came to deliver some documents. I couldn't hide my surprise. Kevin looked a bit angry.
I'm going to be the next president. It will no longer be my father's company. It will be mine.
My mention of it being his father's company seemed to have struck a nerve, and Kevin became aggressive towards me.
I don't know which company you work for, but any company that employs a high school dropout like you must be no good, huh?
The receptionist looked shocked by Kevin's loud voice. Kevin, who raised his voice at me without any regard for the surroundings, appeared childish and embarrassing. Maybe you're right. I was about to leave Rainbow Logistics. But Kevin, not yet finished, continued to raise his voice at me.
Low-educated people like you are a burden to society. I'm amazed you can live so shamelessly. I couldn't do it, that's for sure. Your thick-skinned nerve is astonishing.
Kevin went on a tirade against me. His voice echoed through the entrance hall of Rainbow Logistics. Then, another voice came from behind Kevin.
Kevin, what are you yelling about? We can hear you from outside the company. How embarrassing.
It was Kevin's father, Tom, the president, standing there. Tom was wearing an expensive suit and a luxury watch.
Dad, this guy was a classmate of mine, but he's so arrogant despite being a high school dropout.
I wasn't trying to be arrogant. I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. Then Tom looked at me intently.
Why waste your voice on such an undereducated person? Don't raise your voice at someone like him. What if our other clients heard you? They'd be shocked.
I was stunned. The idea that the president of a major corporation would use the term undereducated was unthinkable to me.
You're right. It's a waste of time dealing with someone like you.
What is this guy talking about? He's the one picking a fight, and it's almost laughably absurd. I couldn't hold back and retorted. I'd say the same to you. I'm busy too, so excuse me. I tried to leave the company once more, but again Kevin raised his voice at me.
What do you mean by that? Hey.
I left the company without paying attention to Kevin. His voice continued to echo even as I left the company. When I returned to my own company, Ken immediately came up to me.
You really saved me, thanks. Also, this came for the company.
Ken handed me an invitation. It was a wedding invitation for the son of a client's president, enclosed in a fancy envelope. My eyes widened in shock when I saw the name of the sender. It was Kevin's name. Seeing me speechless, Ken looked puzzled.
Usually, I would attend as the company's representative, but I already have plans for that day. Rainbow Logistics is an important client, so we can't just skip the wedding, right?
It's not uncommon for us to receive wedding invitations from clients. Normally, Ken, who handles our dealings with Rainbow Logistics, would attend, but if he had other commitments, there was no helping it. I'll attend in your place. I said so while sighing resignedly. The wedding, hey. I'm not fond of places where lots of people gather because I'm extremely shy. And it's Kevin's wedding, no less, someone I really dislike. He's sure to throw snide comments my way again. But I haven't done anything to deserve such treatment from Kevin. I resolved to attend the event with dignity. Time passed, and the day of the wedding arrived. I changed into a suit and wore the fancy tie given to me by my colleagues, then got into a taxi. The wedding venue was at a luxurious hotel. Arriving at the high-end hotel, I saw a line of luxury cars, and people likely attending Kevin's wedding reception were getting out of them. Entering the reception hall, I saw various company presidents and executives gathered for the wedding of the heir to a major corporation. The venue was filled with more than 500 people. I sat at a table marked with my company's name, trying not to stand out, and began drinking alone. After a while, the lights dimmed for the bride and groom's entrance. A beautiful woman in a stunning white dress and Kevin, in a tuxedo, entered arm in arm. Kevin was blushing but composed. When the bride and groom took their seats, a toast was made, and the hall burst into lively chatter. Guests flocked to the bride and groom to offer their congratulations. I'll just give my greetings and leave quickly. While I was heading to greet them, the bride, Ava, had left her seat to go to the restroom. Kevin spotted me immediately and burst into laughter.
Hey, I only invited the highly educated today, so why is a low achiever here? Both the bride, Ava, and I are high achievers.
At Kevin's words, the guests at the reception all turned to look at me, some even laughing. I didn't want to attend Kevin's wedding in the first place. I couldn't understand why I had to be subjected to such comments from him, even though I came reluctantly. I'm just here to represent my company and offer congratulations. Congratulations on your marriage. I managed to control my anger and offered Kevin my congratulations. But Kevin laughed even harder.
You representing your company? Which company sends a high school dropout as their representative? Don't you think it's disrespectful to me?
My anger became increasingly difficult to control. Then, Tom's voice came from behind me.
Kevin, are you arguing again? Stop it at such a festive occasion. Don't bother with someone so undereducated.
So, Tom thinks the same way as Kevin. I made up my mind at that moment. Just as I was about to speak, Ava returned from the restroom and looked surprised to see me.
Aren't you?
Kevin, puzzled by Ava's reaction, said,
What? You know this guy, such an underachiever, is just trash in society, right?
Ava, hearing Kevin's words, desperately tried to convey something to him, visibly shaken.
Kevin, This man is.
But Ava was too panicked to articulate her thoughts properly. Then, a man approached me. He hadn't heard my exchange with Kevin and greeted me with a smile.
You're the president of Orion Corporation. Right. It's an honor to meet you. I've wanted to talk to you, so it's great to see you here.
He handed me his business card, which bore the name Pegasus Logistics. Pegasus Logistics is a leading company in the industry.
What?
Both Kevin and Tom looked at me incredulously.
Could we have a formal business meeting sometime?
Lucas, the president, asked me politely. Yes, we've actually been looking for a new logistics company. I'd love to hear more. As I smiled at him, Lucas beamed with joy. Ava, watching my interaction with Lucas, excitedly said,
So, you are the president of Orion, indeed. I once interned at your company and had the chance to greet you.
However, Kevin and Tom, still in disbelief, raised their voices at me.
You're the president of Orion. Who would believe such nonsense?
That's right. Orion is one of the top revenue-generating companies in the U.S. and a significant client of Rainbow Logistics. Enough with the jokes.
Oh well, it seems this father and son will never believe me. I was indifferent, but Lucas raised his voice to the two.
How can you be so rude? This gentleman is genuinely James, the president and director of Orion Corporation. He's famously shy and avoids public appearances, which is why you didn't know.
Hearing Lucas's words, they finally seemed to accept that I was the president of Orion.
James, the president of Orion.
Impossible.
Yes, I am indeed the president of Orion Corporation. I dropped out of high school and initially lived on part-time jobs, but as that wasn't enough to cover living expenses, I casually started an online shopping operation to supplement my income. I hoped it would just help a bit with my finances. Gradually, the online shop's sales grew, and I seriously ventured into managing it. What helped me then was the mathematics I had studied from childhood. Education doesn't betray us. Indeed, my mathematical knowledge aided the management of my online shop. At first, I ran it alone, but soon I needed more hands on deck. That's when I hired a few employees, including Ken, who became my right-hand man. 2 years after starting my business, my company became so renowned that it was hard to find someone who hadn't heard of it. 14 years after its establishment, we expanded our market internationally, boasting the highest sales among online retailers in the United States. My company partnered with several logistics firms to operate efficiently, with Rainbow Logistics being one of them. When my company was just starting, finding a logistics company willing to partner with us was a struggle, but now they approach us with proposals for partnership. Initially, we didn't have a deal with Rainbow Logistics, but Tom approached us to do business. I'm extremely shy and rarely appear in public, so only a few people know that I am the president. Tom probably never imagined that I, a high school dropout, would be the president of this company. An unusual atmosphere pervaded the reception hall.
I apologize for Kevin's rude behavior.
Ava said that to me, looking genuinely sorry. It almost felt as if she had done something wrong herself. Ava, you haven't done anything wrong. The one at fault here is Kevin. I said this, but Kevin just laughed, which I found incomprehensible. Then, Kevin said something surprising.
I'm sorry for the harsh words, but it's the truth, right? Well, you've done well. We're friends, and this won't break our friendship, right?
The room went silent, and people looked as if they were wondering what he was talking about. I sighed deeply. Kevin, are you serious? If so, you're truly incompetent. Hearing my words, Tom quickly came up to apologize. As expected of the president, he probably could foresee what was going to happen next.
James, I am terribly sorry for our disrespectful behavior.
However, Kevin looked at his father as if he were an outsider. Tom immediately urged Kevin to apologize as well, but Kevin, unbelievably, refused.
Why should I apologize? James and I are friends.
I was speechless at his delusion. Kevin still says such things even now. He needs a reality check. Kevin, unfortunately, I have never once considered you a friend. Friendship means treating each other with respect, not looking down on one another, and supporting each other through tough times. Have you ever done that for me? Kevin, slightly shaken, retorted,
Well, I was young and maybe didn't realize it, but now I consider you a friend.
I was astonished. Tom continued to apologize profusely. We're not friends or anything. I took a deep breath and then called Ken. Hey, sorry to bother you, but can we stop all dealings with Rainbow Logistics and switch everything to Pegasus Logistics? Thanks. Ken expressed surprise over the phone, but agreed to follow my instructions. Lucas, overhearing the phone conversation, looked surprised yet pleased. After hanging up, all eyes turned to me. Sorry, but my company will cease all dealings with Rainbow Logistics from this moment.
What?
That's...
Kevin trembled, his complexion turning pale. Ava covered her mouth, unable to hide her shock.
Our company relies heavily on business with Orion. If we lose your contract, our company will collapse. How could you be so heartless? Do you even have a conscience?
Kevin was endlessly self-centered. I wanted nothing more to do with him. Kevin, think about what you've done to me. Haven't you done far worse? This is karma. The wedding guests looked on in astonishment, while Kevin found no words to retort and fell silent. Finally, I had something to say to Ava. Ava, I'm sorry for ruining your wedding. I will properly apologize later. Hearing my words, Ava stood up.
Your words, James, have opened my eyes. I agreed to this marriage because my parents said so, but I will not marry Kevin. Looking down on people is what the worst kind of person does.
Then, Ava said to Kevin,
That's why, goodbye. Everyone, please feel free to leave.
The attendees started leaving all at once.
Ava, please come back. I beg you.
Kevin collapsed to his knees, crying pathetically. I left the venue along with the other guests. Glancing at Kevin, I heard through the grapevine that the wedding was called off after I left. Later, Tom came to apologize at my company, but I completely ignored him and never met with him. Afterward, Rainbow Logistics, having lost its major client, my company, went into the red, forcing significant layoffs, and Tom struggled to turn things around. Kevin, who refused to apologize to me at the wedding reception, had a huge argument with Tom and was eventually disowned, and now his whereabouts are unknown. He's likely living quietly somewhere, doing odd jobs. It was a fitting outcome for Kevin, who judged people only by their academic credentials. As for Ava, after calling off the marriage, she went through some unstable days but, with my support, now works happily at my company. That's because
I'm hungry. Today, I'll make your favorite hamburgers.
Ava said to me with a smile. After her engagement with Kevin was broken off, I helped alleviate Ava's emotional distress by going out to eat with her. Gradually, I found myself drawn to Ava's charm. Ava seemed to feel the same way, and we naturally started dating. Wanting to be closer to her, I invited Ava to join my company. She is a kind-hearted woman who cares for others and doesn't judge people by their education or background. Such a wonderful woman was never suited for Kevin. While I'm not sure if Ava and I will marry, I want to cherish and nurture the happiness I have now. I'm determined to continue forging my own path to the fullest,